Hello everyone.
Hello.
I'm Tony.
And I'm Tally.
And we are
the Lazy Book Lovers.
This is a podcast for book lovers who procrastinate about reading and have never-ending to-be-read piles. Today's episode is another reading update.
Because we're reading.
Because we've been reading like this. We're having to do so many of these to keep
We're going to have to rebrand.
I know.
Although I always feel lazy because I'm never getting through my TBR.
Yeah, I'm never reading as much as I want to.
Yeah.
Because I had 2 books. I had one audio and one book that I just nearly finished, and I was desperately trying to finish them this week in time for this episode. And I was like, no, I'm so lazy. And it's no, these are 2 books at once.
I just at the minute I just want to be able to be reading. I want to be reading more than is coming in. Now I want my TBR pile. Yeah, I want it to be balancing the other way.
Yeah,
as in I'm reading more than I'm adding to it.
Yeah.
Not the current way, which is I'm reading hardly any. I'm adding to it hundreds a day. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, Kindle Unlimited has not helped me. All the stuff your Kindle Day. I've got some good things in that.
Yeah, and all of the audiobooks and stuff I've got. So what I've done on my Storygraph. Follow us on Storygraph, by the way, because we're both on Storygraph, and Storygraph is cool. I have so much Storygraph stuff to tell you later.
Okay.
So I'm a Storygraph librarian, which is a volunteer librarian, so I can edit books, add them, I can do tickets when people have issues with Storygraph, and blah, blah. And we had a Discord call with the creator of Storygraph.
Right.
And she was... Firstly, I knew it was started by one person, but I didn't realise she was still just a sole developer.
Oh my God.
She doesn't have a development team even now. It's
just
her. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And she is amazing. But yes, so she was giving us some little snippets of what's coming up.
Abandon Goodreads, guys. Go to Storygraph.
You can even import your stuff over. Yeah, so anyway, on Storygraph you can do tags, which is kind of like bookshelves from Goodreads.
Yeah.
And I've put in all my Audible books and everything as a separate tag, so I remember.
Yeah.
They're on your TBR, girl. Read them.
Yeah, I've got loads.
My tags now.
Oh my goodness.
I've got 62 tags.
Yeah. I don't tags I've got is ones I've done for our episodes.
Yeah.
I've got loads of things in my Audible wish list at the moment. But I think with my work being what it is currently, I'll get through them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have the time.
Right.
Or if I get scribed. And the other one.
Scribed. Libro
Scribby.
FM.
Yeah.
Go to Lazy Book Lovers. It's a Beacons, I think, isn't it? The link in bio thing. Go on there and I will put a link for Scribd. I might potentially have one for Libro FM. Give them both a try. I think you get a month for Libro and 2 months for Scribd, and then I just get a month in return. So give it a try, and then if you don't like it, you don't have to continue, but it's worth the trial.
And you have paid no money.
Yeah.
Alright, so did you want to go first? Or I can go first?
You go first.
I'm not actually sure. I don't remember if I talked about this. I finished Caraval. Was that?
Oh, you literally had 30 pages or something. It was you were trying to finish it for the episode.
Okay, no, I think I was around halfway actually.
Oh yeah, something like that.
So, I had a nice long bath and finished the fuck.
And would you reread?
No.
Okay.
No. And now, again, recipe of this book, all the things put together. We've got a magical carnival thing, magical man, there's gods of destiny, there's all sorts of shit going on. We've got, morally grey romances, we've got slow burn, we've got all the ingredients, there's magic that should equal Tony Fun Time. Found them really hard to get through.
Yeah. Those books should have just been...
Yeah, I should have just, consumed them. And it was actually when I was physically reading it, I was enjoying myself, but I found it very easy to put the book down. It was never I'm trying to stay awake so I can read this. It was as soon as I start to feel sleepy, I was done. And which is why it took me so long to read. So I did a really long bath where everyone was out, and I was right, I'm in here so I can finish this.
Yeah.
The ending's okay. The ending wraps things up quite nicely. I found The conclusion to Scarlet's story, without spoilers, a little bit contrived, is the only way I can explain it. It's just very 2010s fantasy, I guess.
Which is
the era it is. Donatella's ending was better, I think. Yeah, I feel like they defeated the big bad too easily. It was like insurmountable odds and then suddenly fixed in the space of like 5 pages. I did not like that. It didn't feel after all 3 books build up, the climactic ending did not feel climactic enough. It just, I don't know.
It might be one of those series, because there's quite a lot of series that I think like it's too much time has passed for me to read it now. Not that the series, like, I think sometimes it's so of its time that, not in a negative way, but if you didn't read it at the time, like, you'll have read more modern stuff, which kind of puts it to shame a little bit. I don't, like, your expectations are different.
Yeah, it's of, you know, it's a 300-year-old man dating a 16-year-old.
Yeah, I'm just a little tangent. I'm redoing all my bookshelves because my daughter has started crawling, so I have to move my books up.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to redo them all, which is why I have so many tags on on Storygraph.
Yeah.
Because I'm putting every book I own on Storygraph, so I have a total of them all. I did, so I'm trying to work out how to do them. I was like, should I do them alphabetically, genre, blah, blah. I'm doing them by vibes, right? And I realised...
That's what mine have done.
Yeah, and I realised I put all the crime with, like, the paranormal, and I was like, why did I put them together? And I was like, oh, the 100-year-old man and the 12-year-old, that's the crime. Yeah, that's why I put them together. They've got the same vibe.
Yeah.
It's like, Twilight, you go with the crime section.
Yeah, it's like they're like obsessed with her, and it's like she's like super special, but there's like nothing really all that special.
She's a self-insert, I'm guessing, a bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like if you're a fan of the author, they're worth reading. If you're trying to read some of that era of fantasy, they are worth reading. I do think they are overhyped on TikTok. And there's that, you can find lots of fucking merch for them, and I never felt like this moment of like connection to any of the quotes from it. And then you can find loads of like quote merch on Etsy and like.
And Tony is like the perfect person to get attached to these quotes and buy stuff.
I really feel like emotionally attached and buy tap. That is me. Yeah, like usually once I've read a book series, I will go and buy something. I'll go on Etsy and have a little peruse. But I wasn't even looking for it. I was looking at other stuff, and this store had a bunch of Caraval stuff. And I was like, I wouldn't have even picked that out as a quote to remember.
Yeah.
Both the romances are kind of like they fall in love way too quickly, and there's no build, and it's like slow burn, but not, because they're like immediately in love, and it's just like, and then there's lots of like, I don't love him, like, but you clearly fucking do, like, you're like, you know, giving up something monumental for him, and then being like, but I don't love him. Like, fuck off. Yeah.
Who are you lying to?
Who are you lying? If I had read this as a teenager, I think I would have liked it. But some of it just felt a little contrived, as anyone I can have, like, or shallow, or yeah. You know, the girls are like, you know, very like, Donatella's like adventurous and wild, and she's full of life. Yeah. And then Scarlet's like meek and mild, and you know, and she grows a backbone through the series, and she's a lot more introverted than Donatella is. And it's just like, they're very archetyped in those kind of things, and their journey arc really is the introverted one getting over herself or believing in herself.
I'm intrigued. I would be intrigued for you to read the most recent series that she's writing, the Once Upon a Broken Heart.
Okay, I've not seen this.
Once Upon a Ballad. I don't know. I've got them, but I want to read Carol first, because I feel like there's going to be quite a difference in writing, and I don't want to read them if I love them and then go to Carol. I feel like that was the wrong way around.
I think you would enjoy Caraval, because a lot of the magic is quite kind of like never fully explained. It's very
enjoy that.
yeah, plotlessy kind of magic. Like, it's just vibes magic, mostly.
Just vibes, just the vibe.
It's just the vibe. You can play a drinking game with our podcast of like how many times we say that per episode.
Have we done an episode where it's just vibes suggestions?
No.
We might have to
But
do that.
if you listen to the Dark Academia one, you can listen
That's
to
vibes.
exactly say the word vibes about 1,000 times.
It's just the vibe.
It's just a vibe. So yeah, I finished Caraval. That's my first one.
Ticked off your list at least.
Done. I don't think I'll keep the books, you know? So if you want them...
Yeah, because I've only got the first one and I do intend on reading them.
Yeah, do you want them?
Yeah, go on then, please. If you don't
Cool.
mind.
I'll put some space.
Sorted. I bet you've already got books to go in that space, haven't you?
Oh my god, yeah. Yeah.
Already set
Yeah,
up.
probably.
Okay, so I am going to put 3 together.
Alright.
Oh my gosh! Sorry, I just got a message of my baby on the trampoline and I've been saying she's too little to go on there.
Oh, Daddy's going rogue.
So rogue. My son keeps asking for her to go on the trampoline with him. And I was like, no, it's dangerous. And he was like, I'll zip up the door. And I was like, no.
You cannot bounce my baby
I was
in
like,
the
you
air.
can't jump on it because she like break an arm or something. And he was like, I'll make sure the door's zipped up. The door's...
That's quite cute though. He just wants to play with his baby suit.
They love each other so much. Okay, right. So I ages ago I listened to the first book in this series. I think there's like 5 of them, and I did kind of love it. I started collecting the books when I saw them in charity shops. Then I decided, probably won't reread them. Got rid of them, and now I decided I'm going to reread them. So
Typical.
it's the Stag series by M.A. Bennett. I may have even listened to the first one when we were doing
Show
the
me covers.
podcast. So the first one's called Stags, wherever that is.
Okay.
And the second one's called Dogs.
Oh, you've upset Storygar. No scrolling for you. There you go.
The second one's called Dogs.
Okay.
And the third one's called Foxes. And I've not done the next one, which I believe I will actually look up what it's called. So it's Stags, Dogs, Foxes, Hawks and Tigers, or Tigers then Hawks.
Okay.
Something like that. Okay. So it's YA mystery, which we all know
Yep.
is my jam.
You like a bit of YA mystery.
Yeah. So this follows our main protagonist, who is called not Stevie. That's from the other one. Greer. She goes to a elite prep boarding school.
Okay.
She gets a scholarship there, and so we all know I love a bit of boarding school.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah.
Mystery, YA mystery set in a boarding school.
It's just
Right
all
up
the
there.
vibes. All the vibes.
All the vibes.
And so she's really struggling to fit in because she's not of wealth. And all the other kids are very privileged, very old money, who laugh at her of wealth.
There's something about the way you said that just tickled me. She's not
Of wealth. So she's not been like getting along with anyone. Her mum left when she was like a baby. Yeah. Left when she was a baby. She's been raised by her dad. Her dad is a nature documentary filmmaker.
I don't know why you're looking at me for confirmation for a book I have not read.
So he is gone to record walruses or something. I don't know. Anyway, he's gone away. So she's gone to this elite school. She got a scholarship. She's very smart. Very smart. She gets invited by Henry D. Wallencourt, who is like the wealthiest of the wealth, to his house for, it says end of autumn term. It's called like something, because it's like old school wealth. They're like, have silly names for them. It's like Justitian break or something. Like it's not Christmas break, it's like Michaelmas break. Kind of shit. So in the breaks, the half terms, he tends to have people to his country property, and blah blah, and it's like considered a big thing to get invited. So she gets invited this one time for hunting, shooting, fishing without the G's. It's just got the little hunting. And she's like, "Oh, that's amazing that I got invited." And then it turns out, not a spoiler because it's in the synopsis, Greer comes to the horrifying realisation that those being hunted are not wild game, but the very misfits Henry has brought with him from school.
Oh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wait, so has there been a history of the misfits disappearing? Or they just go to this and they come back traumatised and no one talks about it? Okay, alright.
No one ever talks about it. There has been a couple of deaths.
Okay.
Yeah. So, traditionally, 3 misfits get invited. For hunting, shooting, fishing. And then, so it's a series based around that. The second book is obviously the following. Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. I don't know why I decided I would never reread them because they're brilliant. Yeah. so I'm going to have to source the books again.
Oh, what's that film where they're all in a manor and she gets married and then it's like this hunting game? It's just to survive
Ready or Not.
It just reminds me of that kind of vibes.
Who is that?
So really, the woman actress in it is like really famous. We don't have brains.
No. Ready or Not. I love that film. I think it's called Ready or Not. Yeah, it's called Ready or Not, and she is called Samara Weaving. That's it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's a really good film.
That one's like
the ending.
Proper thriller.
It's
the
just
ending's great.
Brilliant. It just surpasses all expectations.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. It's that not the ending I thought it was going to have, and it was perfect.
You know my friend's ex-male friend?
Mm-hmm.
That one. He was the one that made us watch that, and usually his recommendations are a bit iffy.
Yeah.
And then I was like genuinely quite surprised that I enjoyed that one.
Really
yeah. I'm sure it was him who made us watch it.
A really fun film.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. That's what it reminds me of. Alright. Me?
Go for it, yeah.
So this is, I finished a few series.
Series I?
Series I. The Shadow Glass, The Bone Witch, Book 3 by Ringe Pecco.
They're all on Unlimited.
Yes, Kindle.
Plus.
Oh my god, we can't words today.
No, what is words?
Audible Plus catalogue. I think I have mispronounced his name in previous podcasts as well. It's Ringe Pecco, and I think I might have called him Shapiro, and that is just because I didn't read it properly.
Love that.
It's very clearly a series, so I'm sorry. Okay. So, you know I said I listened to this series once before and I don't remember the ending? Or I didn't understand the ending. I think it's because I never listened to the ending.
That's such a me
I think
thing
I
to
must
say.
have dropped off and not realised. Like I never finished it, but I thought I did. And this was before I used to track my audiobook, so this is probably why I didn't realise that I hadn't finished this book. So I was like, the ending, I was like, I don't remember any of this. The ending is good.
So you would have remembered it.
Yeah, like the end, like the really satisfying little like how it ties it all up. So the whole way through books. Oh god, hold on. 1 second. Let me organise. I need hands to talk about this. Right. So books 1 to 3 are 2 different timelines. I'm demonstrating with hands, even though you guys cannot see me,
and I'm mimicking.
So we're in the future with like present events of like what's happening, and then we've got a series of flashbacks, which is like supposed to be Tia telling her story to this bard, or it's like the bard retelling it as him.
Okay.
So in the first book, we meet the bard. It's the bard. She brings the bard to the beach, and she's like, "You're gonna tell my story, basically." And he's like, "Okay, but you're like some scary bone witch who's done bad things." And she's like, "I haven't done the bad things, and I'm going to tell you the truth."
But I am a bone witch.
Do you stand behind that?
I do.
Okay.
I stand behind it.
So it switches between like whenever we're in the past, we're in Tia's voice. Whenever we're in the present, it's the bard telling the events of what Tia's doing in the present.
Okay.
So in the past, it's like Tia kind of learning about the corruption of the elders that are in charge of her type of people, and the name they use for them in this book is just completely pinged out my brain. It's not important. Magical people. It's quite corrupt it turns out. And she's like digging into that corruption. There's a type of dark magic which she can access as a bone witch. But she's told that it's the dark rot, it's bad, you can't, there's things you shouldn't do with it. And so it turns out there's all these very helpful spells that have been hidden from her by these elders because of a very old story. So there's a story of how magic came to be in the world and how Deva, which are like demons that bone witches only can put down. Mm-hmm. The story of how that came about has been twisted over time, so that a certain person appears to be a hero, but actually it's their fault. The things that are wrong in their world right now. So like bone witches putting down Deva, it takes a bit of their soul, basically. It kills them slowly. More bone witches die early, or they succumb to the dark rot, which is like the bad side of the dark magic that you can't come back from, that kills you. Mm-hmm. So you can use dark magic, but don't let it consume you, and then you won't die. But as soon as it starts to rot you, that's it, you're fucked. Mm-hmm. But there's loads of ways to stop that happening, which have been hidden from dark witches, and all because of this twisted tale was used to justify it. So their ancestor, the ancestor of the dark magic, has been made the villain in the story, and they're not. And so it's all like myths and legends, and it's kind of hard to explain it coherently. You'd have to because it doesn't get explained. It's drawn out over 3 books.
I like that.
Yeah. So it's like breadcrumbs of like her past as she's slowly discovering the corruption, and then they're discovering proof that the story they've been told is wrong. And there are people that are the enemy of her type of magical people, called the Faceless. I don't know why I remember their names and not theirs, but anyway. And they're told the Faceless magic's evil. And then she's finding a lot of the Faceless magics that could help people if used differently.
So it's like the way you use it.
Yeah, and then really the conclusion she comes to is to stop all this corruption, to stop all the evil in their world, would be to basically get rid of magic and heart's glass. So everyone has a heart's glass.
I remember you talking
So
about
their
this,
soul
yeah.
is kind of encased in a glass and is visible. So you can diagnose illnesses from it, you can see emotions, all kinds of stuff. And people do live longer with heart's glass. But there's a lot of issues as a result of it, and lots of inequality.
Yeah.
And lots of corruption with the magical people and like with the rich.
So if the heart's glass gets damaged,
it's okay. You don't like lose your soul.
Oh, okay.
No, it's like you can get another holder and they just draw the rune again, and your heart's glass gets refilled.
Okay. So it's not like you're a part of your actual heart. It's like a reflection of it.
Kind of thing. It's like a putting your soul out there.
Okay.
I don't think we fully explain the magic of the heart's glasses anyway, but it's tied up in this original legend of how magic came to be and the Deva came to be, the reason they use heart's glass. And she just basically works out that the only way to fix everything is to get rid of all of it.
Yeah. Burn it all to the ground.
Yeah.
Much like what we should do with
the problem is, with her dark magic, she raised her brother from the dead, and if magic goes, he dies. So her whole thing, she's trying to find a solution to keep him alive and then get rid of magic. So this is what you piece together over the books. Has been her goal.
Yeah.
And there's some things she has to do which her brother disapproves of, and he's like, "No, don't do it for me. Don't do this, because it will kill her. What she's doing, it will kill her." And he's like, "Don't swap my life for yours." And she's like, "It's not just your life. Like if I go through with this, I save hundreds of lives. I save every dark witch who's going to come after me, who would have to put down Deva and die early." Sorry, little hiccup there. That made me sound like I was crying. So, yeah, the ending is really satisfying. And then there's this little... I don't know how to... So there's this story you get for... She meets, like... There's also a romance background to this. Mm-hmm. And Taya also, like, revives her lover from the dead. So you find out there's a point where he dies and she brings him back, which is not a spoiler because he brings him back in the first book, so you know all along he's going to die, but we don't get to the point where he dies, which is the turning point.
This sounds
until like
really
towards the end of book 3. So like the stories, you really don't get to the point where those two tales meet back up until the end, but it's not contrived, it's not drawn out, like it's done really, really well. The first time I've ever read a book with flashbacks that I liked it.
I was going to say, like, does it flow well?
Oh my god, it flows so well. No. And, like, because of the past is all in Tia's voice, and the current is all told by the bard.
And they're different actors, like different
Yeah,
narrators?
different voices. So it's
brilliant.
a male narrator, because this was an audio. I don't know if I made that clear.
Yeah, because we mentioned it was on the Plus catalogue.
And, like, there's a point where the bard isn't with Tia while she's doing her things, and he's actually with her brother and, like, some kings and queens who are trying to piece together what Tia's doing. Someone very close to them has been corrupted, and she won't tell them who it is until then. And then when you find the person behind all the bad things that has been happening, all the corruption...
Did you have a jaw-dropping moment?
The person who's close to them who did it, I did not fucking see it coming, but in a good way, not in a bad writing kind of way.
Yeah.
The moment it's revealed, it's just like, oh, it's so good. And the story she tells all along is like her and her partner, whenever they're going through these terrible times that Tia goes through, to get to the point where she's like, I want to bin all magic.
Bin.
She goes through a lot of fucking terrible things in the meantime. And they have this story of, like, we're going to run away together and we're going to live on a little beach. And they tell this story throughout. And then right at the end, the bard is looking at a statue of Tia in the capital. Her brother is now married to the queen. He gets married to her in, like, the second book, so that's not a spoiler. And the romance starts in the first book, so yeah. He's married to the empress. And he's, like, carrying on her legacy. He's the one that built the statue of her. So the bard's looking at a statue of her, and this couple comes up to him and says, we just came to see the statue before we leave. We're going to get a little nice house by the sea, have a few kids. And then that couple just leaves, and you think Taya's dead. And she never tells you who they are, or if that's them, or like, but I was at the gym, and I heard that bit, and it was like, it was, yeah. It's really good. It's a really good book. Totally recommend. I was very happy with the ending. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Yes.
You look so, like, energised right now. Yeah. So, change in tone.
As always.
No, I could do one with a similar... No, I'm going to change tone.
Just...
I read The Ruins by Scott Smith, which is a book I've had on my TBR for quite a while, because it has a movie adaptation, and I try not to watch films before I read the books, and I watch horror films, so it means that there's a lot of horror films that I've not seen that I really want to watch, but I'm being a dick about it. I wanted to watch The Ruins, and then I found out there was a book, so I decided I'm not going to watch it until I read the book. Anyway, I read the book as part of a book club last month. So we read it together, and then afterwards we watched a film together, which was really, really fun. It was the first time I'd done a watch party, and it was really good. And the film was trash.
Oh, no.
It was so shit. And I was like, I'm glad I read the book first, because I wouldn't have read the book if I'd just watched the film. It was like, I don't mind B movies. I enjoy them. But this was just shit.
No.
Yeah.
Like, you know the film from My Best Friend's Exorcism?
Oh, yeah, I've not seen the film, because everyone's telling me it's bad, and I like the book, so I don't want to watch it. I might watch it one day, but it's not on my list of ones that I should need to get to anytime soon. You know, I'm much more interested in finally watching The Shining, but I've got to read the book first.
We're watching fucking Shadow and Bone. Oh no, I know that's not
Shadow
horror.
and Bone. The new series comes out soon.
One came out in March.
Oh yeah. So The Ruins. It's I'll read what it says here. An awesome thriller wrapped in a mystery of the ancient Maya. A page turner that delivers. So, craving an adventure to wake them from their lethargic Mexican holiday before they return home, 4 friends set off in search of one of their own, travel to the interior to investigate an archaeological dig in the Mayan ruins. After a long journey into the jungle, the group come across a partly camouflaged trail and a captivating hillside covered with red flowers. Lured by these, the group move closer until they happen across a gun-toting Mayan horseman who orders them away. In the midst of the confrontation, one of the group steps inadvertently backwards onto the flowering vine, and at that moment their world changes forever. So, and I thought this was like published, I don't know, in like the 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah.
Well, it was published in like 2006. I don't know, I thought it was a lot earlier than that for some reason. I think because it has like that trade paperback mass market cover that makes me think. I don't know.
Yeah,
you know. So basically, they tread on these vines, and then so the Mayans, because there's a guy on a horseback, but there's actually more of them. So they push them onto the hill, and then they won't let them off the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the vines are like basically kind of carnivorous, but it's more a story of survival, like how this like. So it's really slow built. It's like nearly 600 pages.
Oh, wow, that's a long one.
It's a long one. It's really slow paced. It's really built well. There's like so much to it of like they need to work out how they can find water because they're in Mexico. They need to find out how they're going to find food. They can't get off the hill because all the Mayans are that the Mayan tribe that they're all around the hill. They all have weapons. They're like camping out to make sure they don't leave the hill. One of their party gets injured, so then they're trying to deal with he's got an injury and they've only got like I'm talking and they've only got like a small little medical bag, so it's just really good. So whilst it is about these vines that ultimately want to eat them, it's so much more to it. And there's like serious body horror, which was.
Do they like betray each other and shit as they go, or
they actually don't?
Oh, okay.
The vines are really good though. So the vines, you find out. It's such a big book. I wouldn't say this is a spoiler. The vines can like mimic sounds.
Oh.
So
I hate things like that.
Yeah. So the vines try and turn them against each other by making them hear conversations that aren't happening. And they mimic the voices.
That just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah. And they, like, there's a well, and they keep hearing a phone ringing down there, and none of them have signal, and they're like, well, that phone has signal because it keeps ringing, and it turns out to be the flowers of the vines making a ringing sound. When they're getting really hungry, the vines start giving off the smell of freshly baked bread. It's so psychological. It's really good. Oh, it was so good. And the film just lost all of that nuance and just turned into a really, really shit B horror. And it was just, and it wasn't even a good B horror because I was like, I don't mind if you're going to cut all the nuance out as long as you make it gory, but they didn't even make it gory, so.
Because people running around away from vines. Yeah,
and it's like in the film it happens in the course of one night, so they don't have any of the like how we're going to find food and water and
Okay.
Yeah, it was really, really good. The book, surprisingly good. I enjoyed it so much more than I thought.
Is it a spoiler to say whether they make it or not? They make it out?
No.
Okay.
No, and it ends on
Yeah. Right.
Everybody dies. And it's fun. But in the film, I will spoiler the film because the film's shit, so don't watch it. In the film, one of them gets away, and I was like, that's just bullshit.
What, to tell the story or something, and not the film?
Yeah, like, because she's infected with the vines. Like, that's why the Mayans don't let them leave, because when the vines, like, you breathe in the spores and stuff.
Okay.
I'm like, man, you dickhead.
Man.
You just gone and infected everyone.
Oh my god, they could make a second film though, where like the vines have taken over the world.
Yeah, under a different director, hopefully. But yeah, cool. That was fun.
Go with all the gifts though.
Is that a spores horror? Because I really want to read a lot of spore horror.
So that one is it's a biological like spore fungus virus.
I'm collecting some examples for spore horror.
So basically, you know the zombie ant virus thing in that David Attenborough documentary, where they like get this spore that turns them into a zombie. It's like if that mutated and spread to humans, and then basically the girl with all the gifts, Melanie, the main character, is a child born from the womb of an infected mother.
Ooh.
And like somehow for them they're not like the zombie of like the first generation infected. They're not like them.
Mutated.
They're like half normal human, half zombie.
This is Tony's current read, by the way.
No, the girl with all the gifts isn't.
Oh no, I'm looking. I figured that one out.
No, I'm just talking about it. Just reminds me.
Yeah.
go with all the
No,
gifts
that's
that
the
same
yellow
vibe.
cover, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
What have you got for me?
Alright, so next up is, so I did talk about the first book in the Twisted series last time, but I hadn't finished it at that point. Can confirm, like, the ending. Done. And then I read the second book in the series. These aren't short, by the way.
No, they're like 300 pages.
No,
aren't
they're
they?
543 pages, the second book. Well, the others is 600.
Have you physically got them?
No,
you're doing them on
unlimited.
Yeah,
they're all free on unlimited.
yeah. No, I was watching someone on TikTok Live last night, and they literally got them down and said, "Why
They're
are these
not-
so much bigger than you think?"
Yeah, they're all 500 plus, which I didn't quite clock. They don't feel 500 plus, so I think that's like a win in the win column.
A win is a win.
A win is a win. So this book, they're all technically standalones, but it's basically there's a group of friends, and it follows each of the friends. I've now finished this series. So the first book is like one of the friends, whose name I can't, Ava. And then the second book follows her friend Bridget, who just happens to be a princess of a made-up kingdom called Eldora.
Wait, is it contemporary?
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's like
Princess Diaries vibes.
Yes, like a made-up European nation. We know she's a princess the whole time. So this.
Wait, how old are they in this?
So they're in their late 20s, but they all met in college.
Okay.
So these all people became friends in college. So at Arba's story, she's literally just finishing her last semester. Mm-hmm. The four friends, they're all finishing college, and Arba's love story happens in the final year of her college. Their year of college. They've always known that when Bridget graduates, she's has to go back to being a princess. This is quite a prestigious American university where it's not unusual
so she's
for
schooling
royalty.
in America.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not unusual for like royalty and very well-off people and like oligarchs all send their kids to this. I don't know if it's real. Thayer University. I think it's made up, but it's like a prestigious American university. So for them, it's very everyday to have celebrities' kids and royalty and like stuff. So it's not a big deal that their friend's a princess.
Yeah.
She has a bodyguard with her at all times called Booth, and they all like become friends with Booth, and like he has to be there for a lot of their girly nights out, just in the distance,
just there.
Yeah. And then her bodyguard, who happens to have a wife back in Eldora, and somehow gets that wife pregnant despite his charge being in America.
I'm not saying they should do a paternity, but
so he's
giving those military wives to get pregnant when their partner's been in service for like 2 years.
Yeah. So he's going on his paternity leave. He's going back to Eldora. He doesn't intend to keep doing her bodyguarding when she's out of the country. He's just going to be her bodyguard when she's in the country. Mm-hmm. So she gets assigned this new bodyguard. He's meant to be very experienced.
I bet he is.
And then he rocks up, and he's just a complete dick. He's really hot, so the first thought is like, fuck, he's hot. And the next bit, he opens his mouth, and she's just like, fuck you. He's like, your house is unsafe, the security here is abysmal, like, who approved this? She's like, no one. It's my fucking house. And he's like, you're gonna have to move. And she's like, no.
How about no?
How about no? And that's how that is happening just at the end of our story.
Okay.
At the end of their college time. She graduates college, and then she finds a way to stay in America as an ambassador for her European nation and moves to New York. So it follows from there onwards, and it kind of like covers the years in New York very briefly. But through this whole time, she has her new bodyguard, whose name I'm going to have to go check. Hold on.
Is her new bodyguard the love interest?
How did you guess? Are they not going to say his name in the summary?
That feels like a conflict
Reese.
of interest.
His name is Reese. Well, this is why it's slow burn. So he's very much like, I'm a professional, I'm not doing this. Like, no. And they hate each other for years. And then they sort of become like a grudging truce over time. Because the climax of Arva's story, the reason she's able to get like... You're a mother.
You're a mother!
So when at the end of Arva's story, when she gets like kidnapped and the big moment happens, the reason they get kidnapped is because Bridget sneaks out without her bodyguard to go to a concert, and then they both get abducted, and the reason they're saved is because Reese, the bodyguard, finds her. And she's like, okay, you might have a point, I might need to take my safety more seriously, even though we weren't kidnapped.
Okay.
We weren't kidnapped for me. Weren't kidnapped because I'm a princess. We kidnapped because my friend's boyfriend's a psycho. But
it shouldn't have been that easy to kidnap.
Yeah, she's like, if you knew where we were, that probably wouldn't have happened. So she's like, okay, fine, I'll listen to your rules. So they kind of come to a bit of a truce over the years. And he sees how lonely she is in her role as a princess. Woe is me. But she's never ever meant to rule Eldora because she's got an older brother who's been groomed for the throne his whole life.
And I'm sure life's not lonely for him, just being a bodyguard in another country.
Well, he's like, he's quite, the thing is that he's quite open about, he's got CPTSD from his time in the army, he did some quite terrible things in the army, that he feels like he's dirty, he's like, there's blood on my hands, and she's this pure, beautiful princess, and he's like, I can't act on my feelings for her. Like, when their feelings start to change, he's like, I can't act on it, because I'm just gonna impurify her. Yeah. Which is like, ugh, don't like.
I just vomited a little.
Don't like that language necessarily, but anyway.
No.
And then basically her brother...
I went right off him when you said he was ex-military. I'm not gonna lie, I was like, ugh. Unless it's like national service has to happen, then you don't know.
He's ex-American military. He's American.
No.
She's Eldoran.
No.
Yeah.
Get in the bin.
And then her brother abdicates the throne to marry a flight attendant that he fell in love with. So she's like, okay, I was never supposed to rule. And so then they go to Eldora, and she's like, fuck, I've got to be fucking queen.
Does Reese go with her?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah.
Why is that American following her? She's got both.
Yeah. Well, so that's the thing.
I'm asking all these questions, and you're like, listen, hold up, I'm explaining.
So he's like, also has his own personal beef with the country of Eldora. His father was Eldoran, got his mother pregnant with the promise of, I'm going to bring you to Eldora, I'm going to marry you, and then did none of that, abandoned them, and then his mother was abusive. So that's Reese's like tragic backstory TM. So he gets into the army to escape his where he came from. His mother dies from an overdose,
and then it's like, I'm going to go back to Eldora.
So then he refuses. So at first, when she goes back to Eldora to be queen, he's like, okay, I can't do this, and like, I've got feelings for you, it's unprofessional. So he's like, I'm gonna step back. And then in the countdown to her being queen, she has a bucket list of things she wants to do while she's still free, before they make the public announcement that she's now taking over the throne. So
is everyone chill about her brother doing that? Or
no, it's a big deal. Her grandfather, the current king, is very poorly, and this exacerbates, like, the stress of this exacerbates things. Her brother's been groomed his whole life to be king, and then she's just been able to be like wild, and there's a representation of her in Eldora media as this wild party girl who fucked off to America and doesn't care about her Eldoran values.
Give me Prince Harry.
yeah, exactly. I think that's what she's very much playing, is lots of like the rules and etiquette the royal Eldoran family have to follow, very much familiar to, like, if you're familiar with any British like royal politics. And then he is like misses her, so he decides to see if he can get his contract back with her, and she somehow convinces her people to keep him on, as well as their usual Eldoran security detail. So then we have Booth and Reese. And Reese is like her personal bodyguard, and Booth is like second plus bodyguard. So on the weekend before she becomes queen, he takes her away to tick off some of her bucket list, and one of them is have a one-night stand. And he's like, okay, we shouldn't cross that line, however, I'm going to go take you upstairs and do stuff with you. Is that cool? And she's like, yeah, fine, that's fine with me. Because the bucket list item was have a mind-blowing orgasm with someone who doesn't care that I'm queen. So he's like, I'm going to go fulfill that.
Off to work we go. Skipping up the stairs. And does he fulfill that?
Yes, and there's other bucket list items. She's like, go to somewhere where no one cares I'm queen, and like just exist. And he takes us to some tiny city in Costa Rica, where it turns out he has a holiday home he goes to all the time, so he knows it's completely secure and safe for her. So then she gets to have a holiday where she doesn't have to do any queenly duties, and so they tick off the bucket list, and they have this big moment, and then he's like, bye, I'm not coming with you to Eldora, and they have this big night together, and then 3 weeks pass, and he's like, I might have fucked up, I miss her. So then he begins bodyguarding her again, and then
I don't understand how you could just drop in that royal bodyguarding.
Apparently you can.
Like, let's keep it realistic, Anna. Hong. Is that the person who wrote it?
Anna Hong? Yeah.
Keep it realistic. This doesn't feel particularly...
It's an American country that... he belongs to an American company that Eldora contract to use in the US. And then she convinces them to keep the contract, basically. And then they're around each other, and they, like, have all their attraction feelings, and that gets drawn out. But not in a bad way. And then they eventually give in to it. And then, inevitably, it leaks to the press.
Yeah.
But royal people are not allowed to marry non-royals.
Oh, that's why her brother had to abdicate, because he fancied the Barton.
And she's kind of faced with a choice of either I give up Reese or I repeal a 300-year-old law.
So she does the law thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a fun book?
It's a good book. Yeah.
Okay.
The spicy scenes are great. Can recommend. We'll not go into details for the sake of the person who edits this podcast.
Approved.
So yeah, it's a good book.
In no way is this related, but it really makes me want to reread the Selection series.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, again, I went into this series, like the Twisted series, thinking they wouldn't be good, and then they were surprisingly readable.
I think, like, when you have low expectations, things can surpass them.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So yeah, I really enjoyed the second book of the series. You're going to hear about the rest soon.
Okay, I read The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. Tony has discussed this in detail in a previous reading update.
Did you get all the way to 4? Did you get all the way to Endless War?
No, I've just done Bridge Kingdom.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Sorry.
Just done Bridge Kingdom so far. I will do the rest. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I
told you would.
It was awesome. So, Bridge Kingdom is the first in a 4. Is it going to be more, or is it stopped at 4?
I think she's left it open so she could come back to it, but it's wrapped up.
And I think it was indie to begin with, but now it's been picked up. Hey,
but what she does, she exclusively publishes to Audible first for the first 6 months. There's no paperback, there's no Kindle, there's nothing. You can only have the audio for the first 6 months.
And it's such a good...
The audios are so well done.
Yeah. Brilliant. So Lara has only had one thought for her husband on their wedding day. Oh, bring your kingdom to its knees. A princess trained from childhood to be a lethal spy, Lara knows that the Bridge Kingdom represents both legendary evil and legendary promise. The only route for a storm-ravaged world, the Bridge Kingdom controls all trade and travel between lands, allowing its ruler to enrich himself and deprive his enemies, including Lara's homeland. So, Lara is raised, like, in the middle of nowhere with her... Is it 11 sisters? Is there 12 of them in total?
Yeah, 11 sisters, yeah.
And they are all princesses. And the king, who is their dad, raises them to be basically lethal spies to fulfill a marriage contract with the Bridge Kingdom. He will send one of them to marry the prince of the Bridge Kingdom.
With the intention of not letting the rest of them live.
Yeah. And he will send the one he picks there. They will hopefully destroy the Bridge Kingdom from within, and the king will kill all the other sisters.
They've been heavily indoctrinated their whole lives to believe that Ithacana is evil. Ithacana is the reason Meridrina, their country, is starving. They've been heavily indoctrinated to believe that.
They've never actually seen any of their own home country. They've literally been brought up on like this fortress desert in the middle of the desert. Yeah. So they're very naive, and they've just been designed to be weapons. And Lara
they are like tortured in order to become the best warriors possible.
Yeah, who gave you these scars?
Yeah.
And Lara isn't actually the one that was going to be selected, but she finds out. That is a beef I have with the story, but she finds out that they were going to be killed, the rest of them, so she carries out a plan so that all of her sisters appear to be dead, and she gets picked and sent off in the hope that her sisters can be free. There's a lot of Lara overhearing important information in the book.
Yeah.
Which is a bit annoying, but I didn't mind it. But it was a lot of what she finds out, a lot of important plot points she finds out just... Well, she's listening to people.
She's a spy.
She's a spy. So... But why do people have such important conversations just like
People near an open doorway.
Yeah. And like she's like in the royal baths and she overhears a conversation. I'm like, what are you doing? Like so she goes to the other kingdom and she discovers that all is not as it was sold to her by her dad. And the enemies are not enemies.
Yeah, Ithacan has done a lot of things to actually prevent war breaking out.
They're actually they're stuck between like a rock and a hard
place.
Really.
They also can't do any commerce of their own or like their own farming because of the land they live on. So there's this myth that Ithacan is really rich, and she finds out they're really not. That they're withholding goods, and they're not. And the reason Meridrina is starving is not Ithacan's fault.
No. And the king who she marries, he has a sister who, like, they've become, like, unlikely kind of friends, and just, it was really fun. At the end of it, I was like, I need more! No, I actually don't know why I didn't start the second book. I should have.
They lead on. The first two are Aaron and Laura's story. The second two are her brother, who you haven't met yet. You're going to meet in book 2.
Okay.
Is the story of her brother and the Empress of another nation, who you're going to meet as well in book 2. And the storylines of book 2 and 3 overlap. They just leave Aaron and Lara's POV behind, and it carries on from their POV, but the storylines overlap a little of the events of book 2.
I'm glad I listened to it I've got the book as well, so I kind of did both, but I mostly did audio so I could listen to it around the house. I would have pronounced him as Aaron, so I'm glad I listened to audio because I found out it was Aaron. But so Lara and her sisters are not from the same mum, by the way. They're like...
Yes, their father has a harem.
Is just a bit of a pervert.
Yeah, he has a harem.
Yeah. So she gets like taken away from her mum and never sees her and stuff.
That's quite good. So you go to, in book 2, you're in the Meridonian kingdom, and you get to see the harem and like how it all works, and like the harem never forgets. Basically, like, you took our children, and it's like, oh, it's good. It's quite good for female like badassery.
And the King Aaron, he has a grandmother who is quite funny, and she gave me vibes of, what's her name in Shadow and Bone? She gave me she gave me those vibes. She's quite funny. Like the king comes to her grandson, and she's just like, go sort my washing out, go hang up my knickers on the line and stuff like.
So I don't care if you're king. Yeah, and like all of his soldiers are just so used to it.
Yeah,
they're just like rolling their eyes and being like,
she just orders his soldiers to go and like
do her laundry,
do the mopping and stuff. Yeah. But and there's a lot of people who say he shouldn't trust Lara, which I'm not saying they're right, but
it takes Lara quite a long time to realise what she's been taught is wrong. And even at the point where she realised what she's been taught is wrong, she then takes certain actions to work on the information she's gathered that would be detrimental to the Bridge Kingdom. And then when she realises she's in the wrong, it's too late to fix it.
Yeah, she tries to.
Yeah, she does.
It's a situation where if she'd just been honest, it would have been solved.
Yeah.
But
communication, people.
Yeah.
So
that was really fun.
My next book.
10 out of 10 recommend.
And I think, how many have I done? Wait, how many have I done in this episode? 1, 2, 3. This is my 4th book.
Yeah.
Leads on quite nicely for what you're talking about, because I listened to The Endless War, which is the 4th book in the Bridge Kingdom series.
Oh, brilliant! Tell us. Well, that's spoiling anyway.
Yeah. So this follows. I'm going to need to look up the characters' names. Bear with me. It's Zara, and it's the man's name.
It's rare that we're reading like the same series at the same time. That's cool.
Zara and Keris. So Keris is one of the sons of Lara's father's like harem.
I've only known Keris' girl's name. Oh, that's cool.
But Keris and Lara are full-blood siblings, whereas most of the rest of them are half-sisters.
Yeah.
Half brothers and sisters. And the system with Meridrina is quite cutthroat. Basically, the eldest son is the one who sits on the throne, but all these sons below him try to kill him. And Keris has cultivated this reputation as this, like, lazy bookworm who can't fight, he decided quite a long time ago he didn't want to follow his father's quite violent footsteps. So he's cultivated this reputation of this layabout who goes to whorehouses and reads and like stuff, and none of that is technically true. And you meet him in book 2, where thingy,
Lara?
No, the dude.
Aaron.
Aaron. Yeah, Aaron. Aaron meets him and knows him as that persona. But then Keris helps him, but no one's really quite sure of his motivations. And then book 3 starts Keris' story just before the events of this book.
Okay.
He meets a prince. He meets a well, he thinks he's just a soldier of. Oh, I'm not summarising this very well, and I can't remember what kingdom. I had all the kingdoms remembered. It's Meridrenia. Orthon. Sorry, guys. Brain fart. Basically, there is a bit of contested land between these two kingdoms, Keris' kingdom and Zara's kingdom, and there's been the Endless War. It's just been this fighting over this bit of land, and it's cost thousands of soldiers' lives over time, forever, like for a very long time.
Valcotta,
thank you. So she's Valcottan, and he is Meridrenian, and they meet each other not knowing the other one is royal. They just think the other one's a soldier in the other one's army. And they get talking about how they feel about the Endless War, and both of them like it's fucking pointless. And then, without really revealing to the other how important they are within their armies, they start working together to prevent civilian loss of life, basically. Oh. So tipping the other off about a raid, tipping them off, and then they quite sneakily get away with it for quite a long time, preventing loss of life. While still appearing like the Endless War is carrying on. Yeah. And this is where both of them are children of royals that are still in power. And then the events of book 2 happen, and through that they discover, oh fuck, you're the royal child of my enemy. And we've fallen in love.
Ah, what a shame.
And then the events of book 2 happen, and in order to save lives, and to save Zara specifically, Keris does some very dodgy fucking things that just turns out alright. He basically puts the entire nation of Ithacana at risk in order to save Zara. And that's not spoilering it, of what happens in book 2, but Keris makes a choice to save Zara over an entire kingdom of people. And it ends up being okay. And that's all I'll tell you. I'm not telling you how, but it ends up being alright. And so then book 4 starts after that huge betrayal he does. And it backfires fucking massively, because it reveals that Zara's been a traitor to her Empress aunt. And the consequence of that is Zara is sent to prison. And that's the only way I can describe how we get to the plot of this book is he is now very important. And he's like, I don't care about how important I am to Meridrenia. I want to go save my girl. Yeah. She's in prison and it's my fault. And my girl. And it's about how he does that, the consequences, how, like, Ithacana and this new generation of royals want to stop the Endless War for reals. And it's all about how they make that happen, and it's really good. The ending's really good.
So I'm just looking at the story graph. There's a novella. Have you read that?
No.
3.5, The Calm Before the Storm.
No, unless it's been like.
It's a 6 bonus chapter from the viewpoints of Lara and Aaron. It takes place after the ending of Betrayed Queen.
That's book 3.
And gives you a taste of where things are going for them. It's intended to be read after you finish the Inadequate There.
I haven't read that, but I'm gonna.
Oh, yeah, I wonder where you can get that then.
Well, hopefully it's on Unlimited.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if it is a conclusion to the series, it's very good. I think there is potential for her to carry on the story with other characters.
That sounds good.
Right, so that's my 4 books for this episode. Oh, we deliberately split our reading update in 2, so it's going to be a part 2 there.
Yes. Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca. You know that guy that wrote the Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes? Yeah. It's a really gory horror. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so we're about to talk about some horror, some really gory horror.
Trigger warnings, potentially.
Yeah, so the first 2 books he has are short story collections, and this is his first novel. And I didn't realise that going into it. I assumed it was a short story collection, but it's not. So I kept waiting for it to change, and it never did. But yeah, so the content warnings: homophobia, violence, child death, excrement.
Oh.
Excrement. Yeah, so this is his first novel.
Alright.
It was what I expected in terms of gory and weird and kind of really good.
Okay.
I don't know, he somehow manages to write these really, like, beautifully, even though they're really horrible subject matters. So this is based in, like, a small town in Connecticut, and there's like a string of people disappearing, and it follows a gentleman who has, like, it, and I can't remember it ever actually being explained either. Follows a gentleman who has it's almost like an angel on his shoulder. It's like there's a little essence that he can talk to.
Okay.
So it follows him, and he kind of gets wrapped up in this missing people thing by mistake. And then there's also the police officer who is investigating it. He has recently moved to the town with his husband, and they are very unwelcome due to them being gay. And so it's dual POV, and the police officer has some really horrible things happen to him through homophobia. A lot of sexual violence. So seriously, trigger warnings on this guys. And then the other guy, I wish I had looked up their names. Hang on, I don't even think they're on here. No. And then the other guy with, like, the little angel thing, he gets wrapped up in it, and it's like there's demons and devils, and it's kind of hard. You just kind of have to read it, really. But Eric LaRocca always, it's all very inspired by religion. From what I can gather from his acknowledgements in his other books, his mum is a very religious person, and he's grown up with a lot of religious trauma, and as he is a openly gay man, I'm sure he also had a lot of trauma related to that. And so he's obviously working through a lot through his writing, and it's beautiful and fucked up. If you like his other work, try this out. It is graphic. It did make me have a couple of scenes where I was like, oh, I don't really want to read this. And I tend to enjoy horror, and I quite enjoy body horror.
You're pretty tough for body gore.
Yeah.
Tough.
But yeah, I thought it was good. I don't really want to talk about it too much because it's kind of gross, and I shouldn't subject that to anyone that has not approved those trigger warnings.
Okay, I'll really quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
Right, this is the third book in Twisted series, Twisted Hate.
Oh, yeah.
I was looking for easy reading in the lead up to my holiday. So this book follows Jules, who's another girl in the friendship group, and Arva's brother. They hate each other. Like, hate. Because Jules overhears him in the early days telling Arva not to be friends with her. She's a bad influence. She's from the wrong side of the tracks. It's all of that, her insecurities, basically. He brings them up to say you shouldn't be friends. And then they continue being best friends, and they just kind of, then, from then on, Jules and Josh have to, like, rub along, like, they hate each other. And then she takes a summer job working at a clinic doing, she's trained to be a lawyer. So while she's waiting for her bar results and to sit the bar and all that kind of stuff, at the end of her degree, she takes a summer job at this clinic where Josh also volunteers. And they're like,
what's he?
He's a qualified doctor.
Okay.
So he's going through his residency, but in his free time, he then volunteers at the clinic. So, like, objectively, they're both good people. They just hate each other. And they've got lots of misconceptions about each other that they've got through this, like, lens of, like, I hate you. And then they're working together and they're not getting on. And they're like, look, this is a professional setting. We need to have a truce. Because he's there, like, you don't care about these people. You're just at this clinic to make money. And you're going to go off to your fancy lawyer job. And she's like, whoa. Not fair. He's like, you're not even going to try. And she's like, I am fucking trying.
Why am I even here, mate?
Yeah. Because it's not volunteer. He volunteers and he somehow feels superior to her because he's volunteering his time. And she's getting paid to be there. But it's a summer internship that's just to cover rent. Till she does get her fancy lawyer job if she passes the bar. So they do a truce. And like, okay, if we're going to work here together, we've got to be nice. So like they put insults and like certain comments they make about each other off the board. And through that, they discover each other isn't that bad.
Oh.
And they have to hang out
Who'd
together.
have thunk it?
While they're working on things to do with the clinic, hang out together. And then basically a series of circumstances just keep throwing them together. Like, Arthur gets like a country thing in Vermont, which Alex, the posh, rich boyfriend, is paying for. Alex betrays Josh also in the stories of book 1. In the events of book 1. And Josh is like not over it, and like the last people he wants to go on holiday with is like the guy who betrayed him and the girl he hates. And then it's like, oh no, there's only one bed.
Oh no.
You and Jules will have to sleep in the same bed. And they don't have any spexy time. But there's lots of like, she gets really bad period cramps and he's just like, I'm a doctor, I'm not grossed out by periods, like tell me about it. So like, can I help? And he massages her stomach and
the bar is so low.
Yeah. He's like, shut up, it's a bodily function, I know about them. And he's like, I actually know a way I can massage your abdomen that might help with the cramps. And she's like in so much pain, she's like, just do it, please. And then she's like, oh, I don't know how I feel about him being all cute and caring for me. And then the next day when she's better, he's back to being like, I fucking hate you.
Yeah. That's better.
And he's like, I'm not going to kick a wounded animal. What do you mean? Like,
yeah.
And then they end up having hate sex one night. And then they're like, that was the best sex I've ever had. Do you want to keep having some
angry sex?
No, it was basically not friends with benefits, they called it. But then people start catching feelings, and he helps her out with a couple of things, and she helps him out through a couple of rough times, and suddenly they're texting all the time. And I like how they don't draw it out too much. There's just this moment where both of them are like, this is not... Like, he gets really jealous when guys talk to her, and he's like, I can't be jealous, that's not fair. And he's like, I need to have a talk with her, because I can't be behaving like this. So then they just, like, he's helping her out. Some events from Jules' past kind of rear their ugly head, because she's from a very poor background, where she has experienced a lot of abuse, and she got out. But in getting out, she did some dodgy shit, and it comes to haunt her, basically. And she, like, doesn't want to tell him, because there's a sex tape of her, and it's just, she thinks it's going to confirm every horrible thing he said to Arvo about her.
Oh, because she's still... got that in her head.
Yeah.
He thinks that way about
her. And then when she does some dodgy shit that it kind of betrays Josh a little, and then his whole thing is like, he's been betrayed by everyone. His dad...
Sounds like the catalyst of everything going wrong.
Yeah, like, so his dad was abusing, like, tried to kill his sister. That's in the books of event of book 1, you find this out. Is that, so Josh is like, everyone's betrayed me. And then when Jules does it, he, like, completely overreacts, even though she comes clean all of she gets away with it. And then she decides, I love him, I can't, I've got to, like, come clean. So there's that, that's our third act, misunderstanding, but it's not bad. Like, it's not a bad third act, it's really well written.
Yeah.
And, like, he says some nasty stuff, and Jules is just like, well, I'm not, that I've never seen that side of you, that's disgusting, like, no. And then, yeah, they went, it's cute. It's cute.
That sounds like it's been well thought through,
and
like
then,
all of their things.
And then they continue to bicker and make fun of each other all the time, so that dynamic doesn't change. It's now
just how they are.
So now they still insult each other all the time, but like
that's just how they love
have
each
a little
other.
kiss like afterwards.
Oh, I like that. That sounds good.
So I also like that it's not like they magically overcome it. What's your fifth?
That's me done.
Okay.
That's my. I'm doing.
For
You're
this
doing
one.
5. I'm doing 4.
Oh, right, sorry.
So
Right, it was a system I set up and I forgot it.
we will see you next week for the second half of our books.
Mm-hmm.
Please rate us and leave a review wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps if you leave a written review, because that's what helps the algorithm push us so that we get recommended to new viewers. So if you don't know what to write, just write down your current read and we would love that as a review. Yep. Thank you. And follow us on social media. And if you have any recommendations of indie authors or any books you want us to read or any suggestions for future episodes, please come to our website, and there's loads of forms there that you can fill out.
Or DM us if you don't feel comfortable filling out forms on the website. That's also completely fine.
And we will speak to you next week. Bye!
Bye!